There's something that President Trump does that a lot of people don't give him credit for, including me. And it's occurred to me as I look through what he's doing with the UK, what he's doing with tariffs, et cetera, that he is willing to go places, obviously, other politicians won't. And that's tactical, it's strategic. You know, he has now pressed the UK to actually get back to free speech. And what he said is, hey, no free speech, no free trade. Pretty simple. So why would we do that? Why do you pick friends? I mean, when you have friends and you determine that, let's say that a friend's always trying to get you to drink if you're an alcoholic and you're recovered and you haven't drunk for years, and they're always trying to get you to drink or to break this or that rule, or the friend is constantly putting you down and you feel awful around them, eventually you end a friendship like that if you're, have self-respect. Why would we do differently as nations? I know the strategy's bigger. There's the geopolitical aspect of this. We might need their help in war, but Britain can't really help us in war. And if our economic might means anything, it's that we can help countries who are in trouble, but it also means that we can call them out. And Britain is in trouble, UK. They've done this to themselves. They're destroying free speech. They're jailing people for praying silently with their backs turned to abortion clinics, praying silently, hiding behind a tree, and cops can arrest you for that. And they have, and they do. So this is something that President Trump does, and you can look at it as political. Okay, it's political. It's also cultural. President Trump has been given by God a superpower of changing culture. Suddenly, free speech is once again important. Now, this happened in the United States, that young people actually gave up on free speech. Did you know that? There was a fascinating poll, and God rest the Maha Rush Limbaugh. He used to go from time to time to this poll to remind us that free speech doesn't matter to young people, that they're okay with censorship because, of course, in the cultural attack against the minds of kids, they'd been taught that free speech is a bad thing. It's a dangerous thing. We need, safe zones. This was back in the days of you hurt my feelings, therefore I get to go, suck my thumb in a safe room. Well, that was all on purpose. It was to create a generation of fragile people, but also fragile people who believe that their hurt means they get to shut you up. The UK is so advanced in this sickness that they're literally willing to say, okay, no economic partnership with the United States, no ability to have any of our goods over there, no help economically. If we can't censor people, fine. That's how far down they're lost. But President Trump's culture change is something more significant as well. He is willing to do things that hurt. I don't know any other president who's been willing to do things that hurt, knowing they're going to hurt, and then warning people about how they're going to hurt. For instance, when Barack Hussein Obama, God bless Rush Limbaugh again, but when Barack Obama did that with Obamacare, he came out knowing, they all knew, they were going to cancel a bunch of people's insurance plans, health insurance plans that people liked. He knew every time he said, if you like your plan, you can keep it. Every time he spoke those words, he knew he was lying. And he spoke them about like 200 times. That hurt a bunch of people. People's rates went up. Their premiums went up. Their deductibles went up. They all knew this was going to happen, but then they pretended it hadn't. President Trump didn't do this. When he started to make wholesale changes to the economy, he was actually also making wholesale changes to culture because we had the president say, this is going to cause short-term pain, but stick with me. And when you're honest, short-term pain is often the way God delivers great game because God is in the business of taking bad and turning it to good. I think of the short-term pain of my friend John. Short-term pain when they learned that their son Alan was not going to be neurotypical, that he was going to have challenges, huge challenges throughout life. And yeah, there's still pain there. Alan's 14. He's been through like 18 operations. He's effectively nonverbal. And yet he works every day at their soap company. He invents soaps. He does packaging. He does quality control. Now it's not just him. It's his brother Ian, who's also impacted by autism. This young woman, Amy, who got autism late in life. That happens. Can you imagine how hurtful that would be? So this bad, so-called, became good because now we have a soap company that actually stands with the fact that all lives matter. When you purchase their soap, made in America, all natural, no chemicals, absolutely mild on your skin, you're backing a soap company that backs one of our core values, that all lives matter. So go to allensoap.com/Todd. You get 10% off all their products there. That's allensoaps.com/Todd, and change culture every time you wash your body. That's what you're doing. You're changing culture. President Trump spoke about tariffs. He spoke about 1913, but he's doing this in a way that is also, I think, getting down to this superpower God gave him of changing culture.
From 1789 to 1913, we were a tariff-backed nation, and the United States was proportionately the wealthiest it has ever been. So wealthy, in fact, that in the 1880s, they established a commission to decide what they were going to do with the vast sums of money they were collecting. We were collecting so much money so fast, we didn't know what to do with it. Isn't that a nice problem to have? What do you think, Marco? Good problem? Marco would love that problem. But we don't have that problem anymore, but we're not going to have it very much longer, I will tell you. But they collected so much money, they actually formed a commission to determine what they were going to do with the money, who they were going to give it to, and how much. Then in 1913, for reasons unknown to mankind, they established the income tax so that citizens, rather than foreign countries, would start paying the money necessary to run our government.
Now, you can disagree, and factually, someone's going to pay the tariffs, and it's going to be at the end sale point. You could make that argument, and that's true, but he also introduced something else to culture. Or you can come here and make your products. Or American companies can return manufacturing here. That's also a culture shift. And it's a massive culture shift. I remember when I started to give myself the equivalent of a college education. And I did. I set out. I got a book from Princeton and one from Harvard's and one from, can't remember the other university. But there were these books that sort of measured where you were at in education. You did these tests. You'd send them in, and then they would send you back a grade. And you paid a little bit of money. So each of these schools said, okay, effectively, you should be in graduate school. And that can sound very, very prideful. And I've been warned recently that I've become prideful again. I learned hard ways through great mentors who poured into me. It wasn't my doing. God put great mentors in front of me. So I was the recipient of this, not the creator of it. But as I was reading some of the materials to catch myself up to a graduate level education, one of the books I came across talked about how America was going to become a service economy, how good this globalism was for us. Because Americans would no longer be doing the hard job of manufacturing and the hard job of digging ditches. And, oh, praise God, well, they didn't say God because they were secular, but everyone's going to be coding. Everyone's going to be an engineer. Everyone's going to be in the service business. And America will sit atop the economic strata as every other country makes our hardware and our shovels and does our ditch digging, etc. And that didn't happen. Because other countries are led by people who have sentient brains. God gave them, intelligence. No, we're not going to be your makers of things. We're going to also crawl up the economic strata. Secondly, there are people who are designed to manufacture. And that's a gift. One of the biggest things that the left has done in culture is they've taken jobs like manufacturing and construction and they've made them, poor people in their working with their hands. Look at the dumb tool users. They're like chimpanzees. It's the Michael Bloomberg thing. Anyone can be a farmer. Dig a hole in the ground, drop some seeds in it, spit it and cover it in dirt, and boom, you're a farmer. Any farmer will tell you it doesn't work like that. So the culture change of recognizing the importance of having our manufacturing here and that it can be done is a huge culture change. So we've got the speech in England, and President Trump is threatening the UK. Hey, no free speech, no free trade. That's a culture change. He's raising a generation of people who say, wow, free speech really is important, that it can be regained. On the economic front, he's saying there are ways other than the income tax to raise money. And by the way, it has benefits ancillary to just, supposedly shifting who's going to pay it, because we'll pay at the point of retail until companies say, wait. We could be lower price, no tariff if we invest in America. That's a culture change. He's also created a culture change by having outsiders look at the brokenness of Washington, D.C. and look at the structural bankruptcy we have. And I can't impress upon us enough to think about structural bankruptcy like we think about buildings. A building inspector comes to your home. God forbid your home's been damaged in a storm or a fire. They're going to look around. They're going to look at the load-bearing elements of your home, and they may come back and say your home is structurally unsound. That means it's a teardown. Our economy is structurally bankrupt right now, meaning bankruptcy is built into it. So getting people like private CEOs of hedge funds to look at our system, how is it that they discover things that all the important insiders could not?
That's a jaw-dropping number. Where did all those people come from?
Well, it made my jaw drop too when I saw it. We were in Social Security looking for fraud, waste, and abuse. And to do that, we actually looked at the enumeration system, the system by which people get numbers in America. And we found that there were just about 5+ million of them that came to the country as illegals, were giving various forms of parole or allowed in the country, and they got through an automatic system, Social Security numbers, so they get into our benefit systems. And we tracked that through and found that they were on the benefit programs. And just because we were curious, we then looked to see if they were on the voter rolls. And we found in a handful of cooperative states that there were thousands of them on the voter rolls, and that many of them had voted.
It's Antonio Gracias, who worked with Elon Musk, an outsider. That's a massive culture change. That's now created. There's this guy at Brown University, Alex, I can't remember his last name. He sent a Doge-like email out to the administrators there, like 3,800 administrators, huge top-heavy organization, charging him about $100,000 per year for a tuition, and they want to investigate him. That's a culture change from President Trump. He's created an accidental culture change within the Mockingbird media. They cannot get out of their way. Here's Jake Tapper defending George Soros and the Pritzkers, truly, truly evil people.
Well, what's interesting about it is you heard anytime anybody brings this up, a Republican will say, well, what about J.B. Pritzker, and what about George Soros, and what about this, what about that? And I guess the answer is you don't see George, first of all,
George Soros
you don't see them out there talking.
Yeah. No.
Right? I mean, they might be giving money to organizations, this and that, and people can criticize that
They
if
all
they
do.
want.
They all-
But the idea that, like, oh no, I am going to tell these voters, forget like hiring Scott Walker to do it, or
Right.
or
Right.
somebody on the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm going to tell them.
Right.
Jake Tapper prefers his grift behind the scenes. He prefers that his billionaires operate in the dark. He prefers that his billionaires use $10 million of their money to lobby Washington, D.C. to get $1 billion of our own against our will to give to foreign entities. And with the Pritzkers, he preferred that they went behind the scenes to human rights commissions to separate families using the lies based upon kids' views of their bodies. That's how he prefers it. President Trump has changed culture. God has given that superpower, and it's not often enough that we give the president the credit he deserves for that. So I hope we've done that.